I want to go through a few different uh, iterations of this color thing. So we'll start off today with a little bit of really simple sort of comic book style coloring. Then we'll go to a little more advanced version of that thinking, and then onto a full-on sort of grisaille technique. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
On all of these, I'm going to give you some, some options to just use what I have. One of them, and when I never do this, but I was in a hurry when we first went online or whatever. So I used somebody's drawing that I found was perfect. I give them credit for it and everything, but it was perfect for that exercise. I'll probably redo that one at some point and use my own. But so that'll be a little more organic. The one we're going to start talking about today will be more straight, like I said, comic book stuff. Does that make sense? And then on the last one, I'll just give you a quick black and white painting I did, and you can just sort of go over that. I'm not expecting you to just create the whole painting, all this stuff. I just want to go over, there's a bunch of reasons why I'm doing this. One is I think you need to understand, this is one way of doing it. It's a very common way. I'll also teach you in the course of that, we're going to go over some other things, some tools within that. And then probably either next week or Monday, the following Monday, we'll go into another thing of environment creation, and then sort of taking the same idea into that. Does that make sense? None of these are really going to require paint or drawing skills or anything, okay? This isn't a drawing class. And one of the biggest reasons that I do that, I think you need to know how to do that. And I also think this is a Photoshop 101 class. So if you're going to go into digital painting or something, I think if I start talking about color and different ways of handling that, you'll have some idea when you go into things like digital painting. Also, I'm going to beat you to death about edges. Okay. Edges is one of those things that I've identified that people just don't even think about. Okay. And that's because a lot of digital painters don't know anything about painting. Does that make sense? You don't want to be a digital painter who doesn't know anything about painting. Okay. And another thing, I think you guys, this is coming out of like a lot of classes and also just out of my own process that I'm doing right now. And I might have mentioned this, but I'm really starting to think about it, is you should give yourselves some longer term projects where you slow down. Because I think there's an obsession with speed, and like you do need speed and all that. I get it. But this is the first time in 20 some odd years where I'm going, I'm really settling into one place and going, okay, I'm not doing all that stuff right anymore. Right. I mean, I'll still do commercial things, but it's only gonna be stuff that I want to do. And that stuff was always very much driven by time. Does that make sense? So it's been a long time since I go, and then I want to go in and do all these paintings right now. And then I go, no, wait, slow down. Just get into your sketchbook and do what you used to do and paint in there and experiment in there and all that stuff. And I'm really forcing myself to slow down and go, oh, that's finished. And then I look at it the next day and go, that's not finished. It's not even that good. And then work on it some more, and then it switched my brain to go, no. Now start thinking about just much higher levels of finish. Because that's something that you do in, when you're working, but you're doing it so fast that you're just, you know what I mean? You're not luxuriating in the process of making something, which, man, it changes the whole game. Does that make sense? So I think it's good if you do, and I think it's really good to do in a sketchbook. I love to experiment in sketchbooks and play in them and paint in them and do all that stuff and then, just go, I'm going to go. I just did it this morning at breakfast. I want to change the lighting on this little portrait I'm doing. I'm going to make it more dramatic. So then I just went and started painting in it because I have a little palette set up where my paints stay wet for days. So I think this morning I spent 15, 20 minutes on it and threw just enough down to go, okay, cool. Now I know how to go and light the person. I'm going to go in and change the whole thing now. And it was already fairly done. Does that make sense? But it's like, I need something here. I want to make it more spectacular. I want to do something cool with it. And I have time to play. There's no timeline on it. Does that make sense?
I have two questions.
Yeah.
The first one, like if you can explain what you mean by edges with painting. And the second one would be, it's more of a comment. Like I know for architecture, it's what they want or what the goal is to kind of condense your design to a timeline, so when you say like extend it, like what's the latest or what's the longest you recommend,
What I'm saying is, okay, like in my sketchbook paintings, right?
Okay.
I just keep coming back to it. I might spend 15 minutes on it that day. I might spend a half an hour on it, whatever. It has no timeline. It's a place where I can play and experiment and go, hey, I want to try this. Hey, I want to try this. Now, it could be a design thing. If you're an architect, it could be design stuff where you're just going, I want to just push my early roughs of just ideas of shapes or whatever and just go. It's not for a project or anything. It's just for your own brain. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, that makes
We
sense.
tend to get, and then edges, there's a thing called hard and soft edges, and I'll get much more into this later. Hard and soft edges in painting, it really matters with if you're painting, especially nonlinear painting where you're not relying on line or anything. You have to really think about where there's a soft, they call it lost and found edges, hard and soft edges. You have to really think about where something is a soft edge as opposed to a hard edge. And there's a sort of artistry within that thinking. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to do with everybody early
So it's
on
like
is
a
just
balance.
I'm just trying to make you aware of it.
Okay.
Does that
That
make
sounds
sense?
good. Yeah.
And
thank
then
you.
I'll talk more about it when we get into that. We're going to do this thing today. Then we'll do, like I said, a more advanced version of what we're doing today. I shouldn't say advanced, just a different type of version of what we're doing today. And then a full-on painted thing. I think that's the trajectory, right?
Okay.
And again, I'm not going to expect you to do the painting. I'll give you a black and white to start with or whatever. And some of these things will be really good, especially for like your backgrounds. Again, there are things that you could incorporate into your architectural renderings and things like that. Okay.
Sure.
Or to anything. But I've just been thinking about this idea of, and the reason for that thinking is about this idea of taking a little longer on just things that you're just playing around with that are just for you or whatever. Because I keep seeing this, especially in illustration and in traditional media, where people just don't know how to do a finished drawing to get started. They're doing these drawings where you're going to paint that? That's going to look like crap. Like nothing's worked out in there. And what the idea, and it's weird. I know it sounds obvious, but it's actually not. And I get it, because I think I was the same way probably. I probably thought, I remember taking things to finish and going, wow, that looked good as a sketch, but it sucks as a finished drawing, man. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not worked out. And when you're going to go to, do a rendering, a painting, whatever, you've got to know how to take something to a finished drawing or whatever that doesn't look overly stiff and tight, but is also very finished. That's a tricky little thing to do. And I think the sooner you start working on that, and like the sketchbook stuff, it could just be a drawing. It doesn't have to be a painting. It could just be like, I'm going to take this drawing and take it to finish and see if I can really balance it out and make it look really good. You know what I mean? Because it's not as easy as it sounds. But if you become aware of it early on and you start working on it early on, you'll start to develop that balance of a nice loose drawing, but that feels very finished, that is ready for you to render or paint or whatever, or just ready to present. Does that make sense?
Where would you start? Like copying images?
It depends on where you're at in your skill set. I always say the thing I think you always want to do is you want to start with fundamentals.
Okay.
And I think anybody who's interested in drawing needs to, you could take life drawing, get a methodology around life sketching. But yeah, I really do believe you have to have a methodology around it. I think if you just go and you just start, and it's better than not doing it at all. Observational drawing, observational drawing, observational drawing, observational drawing all the time. Okay.
Sure.
Go to Old Town. I'm going to Old Town Orange probably tomorrow. Go to Old Town Orange and draw. I mean, there's really interesting, fun architecture there. And start,
Sure.
Working that stuff out. Then, move into people, and then move in, what we're doing on my Saturday class. Now we're into people and environments, right? So they're throwing down people, crowds of people, and the environment and the buildings and all that stuff and foliage and all that. But it takes them, a month and a half to get to that point, right? And some of them are still working on people and all that. But just that idea of, you want to have the skill set where, yeah, you can throw stuff down really fast, but then also I can take it from thumbnail all the way to a really finished high level of finish, right? And I know that sounds obvious, but it's like a lot of people, it's a lot of stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you got contrast, value, color, temperature, color theory, basic design, maybe life drawing, fundamental drawing, observational sketching. You got all this stuff you got to put together if you want to have a really broad skill set. Now you can also focus on something, that's fine. That I was never satisfied with that. The idea that I sucked at one type of "Oh, I'm not really good at drawing people. Oh, I'm not really good at drawing." I did that. I was like, screw that. I want to be able to draw anything. I want to be able to paint anything. I want to be able to do anything I think of in my head. That was my goal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
And then also on a design level, if somebody called me and said, "Hey, you want to do a theme park?" Yeah. "Hey, you want to come over here and work on package design?" Yeah. "Hey, you want to come over here and do product design?" Yeah. "Hey, you want to come over here and do toy design?" Yeah. That's what I wanted to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay.
And be broad. You know what I mean? You don't want to be waiting for the phone to ring for the one thing you do.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people do that when they specialize. And specializing can be fine too. I've seen some people where I just go, man, there's no way that I can see right now that you're going to have some John Navarre's concept design career because the drawing skills aren't there and the design skills aren't there. So maybe you ought to focus somewhere else because I don't see the commitment to the drawing and the design part. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, if you're not committed to that, if you're not, I'm telling you, if you're not laser focused on this stuff, man, you're going to be in trouble. Okay, enough of that. Oops, there it goes. Okay, I just want to briefly go through these. Let me see what I got here. Don't let me forget to screen grab the room one more time. I know that's not your problem. Sorry, I shouldn't say that.
Don't forget to screen grab the room one more time.
Thanks. It's really helpful. Okay, how did everybody feel about this planet thing?
It was fun.
Yeah? But you guys are understanding it? Yeah? Where are you at? Irene.
Yeah.
So this, see how that's disappearing into this value right here? Hang on.
No, because you're not screen sharing.
Yeah, I am. I'm using telepathic screen sharing, but apparently you can't do that. So okay, that's fine.
I think you're too high up in the mountains. There's just not enough good reception.
That could be. We are having it. Usually it bounces off the ionosphere and it'll bounce down into your area, but maybe, I don't know. Okay, so see this dark value here?
Yeah.
Why is there a dark value there?
I wanted it to be ominous.
That's fine, but I think what I would do is you still got to kind of figure out how to, it could be, let's see what this is. I'm going to push this up here. Could just be, I think you still need to pop some color in there, but it could just be, darker values in there and it doesn't glow as heavy and all that kind of stuff. You could do stuff like that, right?
Okay, yeah.
Also over here, this isn't too bad, but I think over here, oh, and Jordan, I had something I wanted to go over with you real quick. Okay, so I'm going to do a lot of this and I hope you guys understand this. Sometimes I start looking at stuff after the class and I love it when I get people from other disciplines in here or they're bringing in something from, I don't know, another class, entertainment design or something. And I see something that I can comment on. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but sometimes it gives me an opportunity to do a little quick talk about it. Does that make sense? I like the class loose in that way. I don't like it. I like it structured as far as what we're covering, but I also like to have spontaneity in it. Does that make sense? I never liked rigid classes when I was in school. All right, so look, I think here you could soften these up a little. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then like I'm softening this edge. This is getting into exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, where do I soften up these edges? I'm not going to soften all of them, but see how softening up a few of them helps it a little bit, gets a little more of that wispy. And then this one could kind of go out into space a little. This is kind of nice right there. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's those edges. I'm struggling.
Everybody does. It's a really, and we'll go into this more, like I said. And a lot of times I'm going to reference traditional painting and stuff because you need to know that. Okay. It's like somebody now comes in with digital photography and goes, hey, I don't care about photography. It's like, man, all this stuff is based on traditional photography. Right? So it's like, why would you not want to know your craft? And by the way, this isn't a digital versus traditional. It's not that. It's like you're pulling from both worlds, but you really, man, if you want to know what you're doing in digital or whatever, you need to know the fundamentals, and that needs to start traditionally. Okay. There's too many tricks you can do on here. Undo, 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 you know, all this stuff, you know, mirror it, do this, do that. Oh, Scott Robertson told me how to split it and mirror it and turn it into an alien. That's a bunch of video game crap. You know what I mean? Okay. So you understand what I'm saying here, right?
Yeah.
And I'm also going, I like this edge thing because it kind of reminds me of taking a bristle brush and softening an edge in oil paint or something. But, you know, if I want to mix it up, then I'll come in here and go, you know, maybe, I don't know if this will work, but.
Were you using the bristle blend smudge?
Yeah, I was using the impressionistic blender.
Okay.
I like that a lot. But see, look up here, I can get real soft now. And some of these can, you know, transition and be much softer edges. So I'm getting a variety of edges. Okay. And then sometimes and then here's what usually people go through. I talk about this. Usually they're pretty good in here about this because we go through it so much. But a lot of times they'll just go in and grab something and just soften every edge. So it looks like a 70s van painting. You know what I mean? Looks like a horrible airbrush painting or whatever. They do the same thing with the airbrush for some reason in Photoshop in general, where they go to paint stuff and everything's airbrushed. And it's like, that looks awful. I mean, that looks awful. Again, that's why I didn't like that. Or I didn't say I didn't like it. I did like the movie. That's what bothered me about Klaus, is that every scene had this soft shading all over it. And I'm like, I don't like that look. It's weird. That's just not, it makes everything look like a balloon animal. Does that make sense? Like they're full of air and they're shiny. Like everything's full of air and shiny. So now you're taking me out of humanity because we don't look like that. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying it has to be hyper realism or anything, but it's just like, that just looks weird. And it felt, if there was so much made of that it sort of made me go, and then I saw all these, like, here's how they did it. Here's how they did the cell shading or whatever. Here's how they did it. Here's how they, and it felt like, okay, is anybody looking at the end result of this? Or are they just all impressed by the technology? Answer is they're all impressed by the technology and they're not looking at the end result of it. Does that make sense? Don't get all blinded by technology. Okay. All right. Does that all make sense?
Yep. Sounds
And
good.
be careful with this too. Like these plumes or whatever, that's an interesting idea. But then that takes my brain to here. Hang on. Which is an interesting idea. Hang on. So if you look at the sun, it gets these plumes going out into space. You see that?
Yeah.
So if you get closer here, like here, here's a good one. That. See that? So this is kind of an interesting idea in this sense. Great. Here it is. Because that's where my brain goes with this. And that's what I like, is I like this stuff to suggest things to me when I'm painting or whatever. So let's take this now. So I could take that idea. That's not what I want.
That's where I got my inspiration from, but I guess it didn't pull through enough.
I'm going to go. So what you could have done, start to get these plumy things going up. I don't know if I'd use this brush or a different one, but I'm just going to use this for speed. You know, and then I can go back to this same idea. Start mixing some white in there. And then mix in, I don't know, maybe this. You know, and then pull this up in sort of a plumy, flamey kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then go to a really hot color. You know, and if you want to do an ominous color scheme, you could figure that out. You could go to like an icy cold kind of hot color, which might be kind of interesting. You know, so it looks like this circle of the corona of the sun, which would be that's a fun idea, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you.
I'm just going to pop through these and see if I see anything. Because most of them. But everybody, is there any general questions on this? Everybody's okay? Where's Jen?
Good morning.
I like this down here, this little atmosphere, and then it sort of fades off and fades off up here a little bit. Yeah?
The glow, yeah.
Huh?
Thank you. The outer glow.
I'd probably soften this edge right here a little bit.
Okay.
Other than that, it looks pretty good.
Thank you.
Okay, where's Kayla? Kayla,
Hi.
don't I have to make an appointment with you?
Yes.
Okay, I got to do that. Ooh, the background looks cool.
Thanks. I tried to reference a nebula and then kind of emulate.
Yeah, you
that.
got it. This here, see how hard edge that is?
Yeah, I was having trouble doing that part.
Yeah, so that's starting to be an edge thing. So the way I usually do this kind of thing, because, okay, so what am I referencing in my brain when I'm doing that?
Like a volcano, kind
Yep.
of? Okay.
Exactly. But now we're referencing a volcano from space, or yeah, from space, right? So,
Mhm.
you know, I'm getting all this information. This is really great here. Look at those cools in there. And it's just, this guy's insane, by the way. Look at this kind of thing.
Mhm.
And then I go, can I actually, and I'm not trying to we're not making a documentary here. Okay. I'm just trying to get enough knowledge to go, what's that going to look like? Volcano. Oops. Is it OE? Who cares? No. And if I don't find anything good in here, that's fine. This is kind of good. That's good. See how soft the edges are getting there?
Mhm.
So, okay, look at this one. That's somebody made that up. Or let's see, volcano from the air. This is really good here. That little veiny line right there, this, so on and so forth. Okay, or here, this is really good, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just looking at that. And then what I think I've said before when it comes to light, or when it comes to basically lighting, but we're talking about hot lighting here. If I come in here, number one, from space, everything's probably not going to be hard edge because I'm looking through an atmosphere. It's something that has sort of an atmospheric quality to it anyway, because it's throwing off steam and all that kind of stuff, right?
Mhm.
So what I like to do is I go, okay, and I'm going to do this really simple. Just going to grab a red and I go, I got these cools. See, so you got these cools, so that's going to set it right up. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So then I go, what's my hottest point is probably going to be more on the yellow side. So I'm going to come in here and go, I'm going to put a little river here, and I'd sort of spider that out so it looked somewhat believable. Probably have to make it a little wider and a little bit ununiform. Then again, I'm going to come in here and soften a few edges. Now, again, not everywhere. Down here, I'm going to soften it up more here. Anywhere I feel like it doesn't feel lava-ish enough, I'm going to leave that. I like that. And then I'm going to go right into pushing this into an orange. Why?
To make it hotter.
Yeah. I'm not going to do it everywhere. I'm just going to dance. See that?
Mhm.
Then I might soften the edges maybe like that. And then I can come in here and just heat that up a little bit. You know, there's a million ways to do this, but this is just the basic concept. I don't want to make strings of it. I want it to be like it's got hot areas and cooler areas. So it gets a little more atmospheric. Okay, does that all make sense?
Yeah.
And then I might even be able to go, because I just saw that really cool. I'm going to pull some of this. I'm going to put some of this little lighter value over here. Because sometimes a really hot orange, because this lighting almost reminds me of stage lighting. So I'm referencing all these things that I've drawn from and all that kind of stuff. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I'm also referencing is stage lighting. And a lot of times when you get a really hot orange or magenta light on somebody, the shadow side will go screaming lavender. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So I'm kind of thinking like that. Because, I mean, it's my world. I'm making it up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go a little brighter here. Maybe I can get a little, see that? Why it just contrasts us a little bit, and it's just kind of nice. And I saw it in that volcano photo, but I'm really getting this from stage lighting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that looks cool.
Yeah. So it's just sort of finessing. Now, if we came in here, we could probably finesse some of these edges and get it to integrate into the planet a little more. See what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and then I'd probably just have to come in here and reinforce a little more. So I could probably just knock this back really. So you got to really set it up. You know, you don't want to just throw the yellow in there. You want to kind of think about how this is working, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to really knock this out because I want it to integrate into the planet more. Right now, you see how it's sort of sitting on the planet?
Yeah.
You know, and then I could just come in and do the same thing. Maybe I can grab a little of that. I'm going to go a little hotter. And now I could start building this in here a little bit, just like we just did, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just sort of reestablish where that hottest center is, and it'll work. And I also might be able to get away with a crazy magenta in here. You know, oh, God, I hate the way they do this. Let's try this magenta. These are really, yeah. See them? That magenta is cool. You see that?
Mm-hmm.
I actually like that better. And that's pure. You know, and I got to be careful. You don't want to be using a bunch of pure colors, but you already set up the base for it. So now I'm just hitting it with magenta, right?
Okay.
If I just went in straight magenta, it looked cheesy.
Mm-hmm.
Got to build up. All this texture up here is cool. Is that all just brushes and stuff?
Yeah, I found one that was kind of coarse, and then I just worked on smudging some of them.
Yeah, that's great. That looks great. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
See, bring that into your work. Yeah?
Yeah.
Everybody else is going to do those cheesy step-by-step concept design things. Go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Professor. I have a question about the past does that job. It is possible to make that volcano lava rivers a little bit more like to following the shape of the sphere, because it was
Yeah, I would have followed. It's going to follow the form a little bit.
Right, because it was logic and another layer, but it was a little bit flat. It's not possible because I have.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of, I mean, they're going to sort of crawl over it, how they crawl over it, but I got to give it that sense that it's going around that sphere.
Right.
That, that could just be that, it's compressing a little bit as it goes around the curve, bulging out a little bit, that kind of thing, and there's also, I don't know if they still have this filter in here. Let's see. Maybe I have it on another layer, and I probably wouldn't do it this way, but just for the sake of argument. Let's say that I got this shape. I'm not even sure if this filter's still in here. I haven't used it in years. Let's say this is my planet. These are going to be horrible colors, by the way. This is my planet. And then I'm just going to do a quick pass on this real quick. And then on another layer, let's just make some marks. And I've started making these shapes, right?
Right.
Without really thinking about it. And then let's see if we can go here. I think it's this one. Okay, see this little whatever you call it? If I back out right here, you can see I got a plus minus right here. So there's my image, right?
Right.
So you can see it started there, and this will sort of spherize it around this wireframe. Do you see that?
Right. Cool.
I'm gonna go boom. You know, and it'll sort of spherize a little bit. I could do it again and start to, you know, bulge it out a little bit. Let's see if it'll do it again. This is under distort, right? Might have to rasterize it. I'm not sure. No, I did do it again. You know, maybe I could do that. Does that make sense?
Right, right. Perfect. That filter.
But I would probably I like to just paint it. You know, all the filters and everything are great. And sometimes I'll be doing something and I go, oh, I can just spherize that. And it'll just speed things up. If I have time, I'm going to sit there and paint it. And what I think everybody should learn how to do is just sort of learn how to do it. I mean, it depends on what you're doing. If you're a graphic designer or everything, you're not going to spend maybe forever getting all this painting stuff down and all this stuff, and that's fine. You know, and then use a spherized filter. It's fine, right? If it looks good, it's good. What you don't want to do is use filters where everything looks like it's filtered. Does that make sense?
Right.
So what I see a lot of is like, it's mostly with the concept stuff. Everything is photo bashed. It looks like it's all filtered. A lot of overlays of things, you know, because they don't know how to create texture maybe. And you know, and it just sort of looks like, okay, you understand Photoshop, you don't know anything about painting. Does that make sense? And since this is a class called Photoshop for digital artists, we have to talk about that, right? Because we're going beyond. When I taught 100, it was always a little frustrating to me because I couldn't really go into all this stuff because it's like, there's a lot of graphic designers in here and stuff, and they didn't really sign up for that whole thing, you know, which is fine. That class is, you know, much more, a little bit of Illustrator, a little bit of InDesign, a little bit of Photoshop, you know, enough to hurt yourself.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Let me quickly go through these again. And I might even take some of these photos for reference for what we're going to do today. Okay, so let's look at this. Okay, so I pulled a couple of these things. I don't really care which ones you use, but you can use mine if you want, because I think these are fairly big images. Okay, so what I'm using here, I'm starting with an inked drawing, okay? I use this one too, if you want a different flavor. This one, if you really want to get into it. This one, if you really want to get into it. I don't know why there's oranges there. So let's try. I don't want to do that one. Let's do this Hellboy one because it's kind of obvious what the color scheme is. Okay. So why are we starting with an ink drawing like this?
Easy to see where the shading is.
The reason they do this basically is that drawing is so rock solid and such dense blacks and everything. It's just rock solid. So it's actually pretty simple to color these. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Because a good contrast, the great contrast that it has.
It's the reason they do this. It's like I think I've said this in here before. I would do a demo over at Disney when I was doing that watercolor stuff, and I would do a really quick pen drawing in waterproof ink of some street in Paris or whatever. And then I go, watch, I'm just going to throw a bunch of crap all over it. And it's like the drawing is solid, so it just holds everything together. So I have a lot of leeway with my color because that drawing, and especially in this case, this is super graphic. It's going to hold it all together. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first thing we're going to do here, let me move this over, is we're going to get this. Okay, so remember, we can't do anything really with this background. We can draw it or whatever, but it's a locked layer, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to go unlock it, rename it. I'll call it ink. And then what I'm going to do is come up here and go, okay, so this is strictly black and white, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to go here and go multiply. What multiply does is it just gets rid of all the white. Okay. And then I'm going to lock this. And then I'm going to go underneath it and go color. And I'm going to grab one of these. I can just make it up, but I think in this case I won't. So let's now go. Actually, I like to put a base layer. So I want to play with the warm cool thing, because that's usually what they're doing in these things. Now I'll dial in this color. So I usually tend to just throw a color in and then I'll just dial it in. Wait a minute, I think this is black and white. Okay, see how this is on grayscale, you guys? You go to image mode and it goes bitmap, grayscale, duotone. We'll talk about that later. Index color, RGB color, CMYK color, blah, 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 blah. We want this to be RGB because we're working on screen. Yeah? That make sense?
Yeah.
So let's now see if I can fill this. Yeah. So now we got this nice blue going on for drama. And I kind of like it. I don't mind it, but I think I'm going to desaturate it a little bit. Really hyper saturated colors can start to look really amateurish. Does that make sense? And then I'm just going to I'm going to try a couple things here. Okay, so I'm just going to make this up. So if I'm totally blowing it, whatever. Let's see, maybe. Okay, so look, this is what a lot of people do, and sometimes it works. We'll sort of do that. So what I'm going to try and do is just set up some sort of lighting scheme here. And I'm putting these on different layers. Then I'm going to see if I can do this. No, I won't do it. I'm going to pull this in. I'm going to crop it. Wait a minute. I'm going to save as. Okay, so I'm going to save as, so I save the original. So go save on your computer. Ink drawings, Hellboy 2. Hit save. And now it's switched over to Hellboy. It didn't switch over. It's weird because it's still reading as a JPEG. Hang on. Oh, yes, it did. Hang on. There it goes. Switch to Hellboy 2 PSD. So now I've got my other ones saved where it was, and now this is a new one. Because what I want to do is I want to clip this a little bit. I don't want the excess out here. So what am I setting up here? Anybody?
Lighting.
Simple, warm, and cool color scheme, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. So this is down here, whatever's down here, I don't know what it is, but that's kind of where my light source is. And then see how it's starting to crawl over and mix with that blue a little bit, which is kind of nice. Yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what my point is, I haven't done shit to it and it's already starting to look kind of cool, right? So now I'm going on to my next layer. I just sampled this color here, not the hottest color, because I got to have somewhere to go. And that's my hottest spot. Does that make sense? That's my light source, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just coming in here and I'm kissing this front part a little bit. I'm going to leave some of the blue in there. Now, he actually is red, so he's going to get redder just by the nature of the fact that he actually is red. So putting a red light on him is making him really, but I want to build that. I don't want to just jump in and do all this stuff. And I'm just taking a brush and I'm just really, again, what's the message here? I'm always working super loose, right? And everything is sort of forward facing, I'm going to do there. Now, let's see if I can go. Now, I could go into another file I have and pull something out and rip off assets from another file, which would be fine. But I'm going to just do it in here. And I'll do this bluish. I'll change this blue again. So we're going to incorporate a little bit of what we just did in the other project. I'm going to dial this down. I'm going to desaturate it a little bit. What am I doing right now, you guys?
Doing that planet thing.
I'm setting up my, I'm trying to set up a color scheme, a warm, cool color scheme. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, these kind of fantasy things are always in some sort of, or it's fair game, I should say, to have planets and all that kind of stuff. Gives me something to put in here. And then I'm going to go maybe, I want to keep it primarily blue. So let's go maybe a little, and I don't want it to be a healthy planet though. So let's put a little of this in here. And I should have, I'm going to mix this up. I'm going to just see if I can, and okay, so I tend to just come in here and play a little bit. Get some darks in here. Then I want to come back in here now. I established a dark in there, so I'm going to come back in here with a nice rough brush, maybe up here. Let's try this one. I want to get some texture on there. And I'm going to give it just a tint of this color. Okay, so now I've got another thing I'm going to do here. Let's do this. So now we got this. I'm going to go a little hotter up here. I hate it when I do that. See, I should have saved that shape, but oh well. This is easy to get. I'm going to go get a little hotter up here on the top. I want to get a little more complex color here. But I want it also brighter. Oops. There we go. And I have an idea in mind here. It's a little more of a moonish idea. And I could keep playing with that, but that's probably enough. Now what I'm going to do is go to make it a little different. want to do a layer mask. Go to here, go to black and white, like we've done before. Give it that little planet fade, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Just makes it a little more interesting than just a sphere and a little more atmospheric. I want it back here. I probably wouldn't put it back there compositionally, but so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to this layer. I want to see if I can sample it. And get rid of that light value up towards the top because I want the planet to stand out. It's weird. Why isn't it filling? Oh, that's why I put this in here. There, that's a little better, right? So now this will just become my light source. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So this gives me an excuse now to go, will be, get my brush, go back to a different brush, this one, and sort of rim light this back here a little bit. Oops, I'm on the wrong layer. Go back to my color layer. Now this layer, let's see. Yeah, so now I got an excuse to have this sort of reflected light on them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So really simple, warm and cool color scheme. Now, the sky's too boring to me, so I'm going to do, by the way, those, yeah, they left again. That's weird. Hang on. Oh, here they are. So again, I'm going to try my spatter brushes again. I'm going to take maybe some of this, maybe go a little lighter. And I'm going to put sky here. I don't like that. It's too much. Because I want to get some sort of atmosphere back there. Still too clustered. I don't like that, but I can probably still save a little bit of it. I want to get this behind the color layer so it's not overlapping it. You know, maybe I could put in some sort of dramatic stuff in here. Again, I'm trying all this stuff. If it doesn't work, I get rid of it. Could get a different color in there if I want to. I'm going to try this other one here. Hang on. Yeah, that's better. Get a little bit of that. I'll go a little bigger. Get rid of some. But now I might just come in with my eraser and go, I'm going to get rid of some of this so it's not all uniform. I'm always trying to combat uniformity. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And now I'm going to come in here. I'm going to grab just a hard round. Let's go. This thing keeps organizing my stuff, which is really annoying. And I'm going to come in here, and again, to get a little bit of sparkle, I'm going to really push some of the value up on this and just come in here and go. What layer am I on? There we go. Oops, I don't want that. Even though I just changed that. Oops. I'm being really sloppy, but you'll get the point. Okay, so now we got a sky there. Now I could go, well, do I want it that color? Let's see. Maybe this in the foreground. I'll go to you. And again, I just try. See, I like that better. Right?
Yeah.
So I can just roll through here and go, what's better? You know, is my solution correct, which it wasn't? And I just roll through the whole thing. Maybe I'll go back to, I like that. It's a lot more subdued. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then maybe, I'm not going to change that. The planet's fine.
What if you
all right.
put like
Go ahead.
fire? What if you put like fire flakes? Like, you know how there's like little hot
Yeah,
spots?
that comes a little bit later. Like embers and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I always do. If I've got something that feels fiery, I'll throw the embers into it. Okay, so now let's go. And I'm jumping through this very quickly. I would play around with this quite a bit before I committed to anything. I'm gonna go back to color. Now I'm gonna get some of this hot here. And let's go, actually, let's go here. Let's go to just a little hotter, but maybe not that hot. So I'm going to heat up some of this down here, these underplanes, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Really heat them up down here as it gets closer. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Then I'm going to let it fade out up there, maybe a little here. Then I'm going to go a little bit in there to warm it up. I like a little of that bluish color living through there and sort of purpling it up, not getting like here on his whatever that hand thing is. Whatever that ridiculous hand thing is. Okay, now I'm going to step up a little bit. I'm going to go a little closer to my light source here. Some of him would be, especially down here. I'm going to start down here. A lot of these things down here are reflective, so I can really go, you know, maybe I'll give this a little edge light. Little edge light, little edge light. Pull it back into here a little. I'm still going to knock that back. I don't know if it's a leather jacket. If it is, it's really going to get some hot spots on it. This down here is going to get warmer. So what we're doing is we're building this up and then we're trailing it off. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then he's going to, you know, up here, I'm probably going to hit him a little harder because that's his face. And he is red, so I can justify, you know, getting quite a bit of red in here. So I'm really just playing with it. I want some of that blue in there. And then I'm going to come in here and soften up some of this. And it's a constant just sort of building process. Okay. Does that make sense?
Right.
Now I'm going to come up here and get a little heavier. Drag my edges a little. Again, if that's a leather jacket, I can go a little, get some stuff going on here, top of his head. You know, and I could go a little purpley. So what I'm building here is just a real basic thing. And then I'm going to go, well, you know, things will inspire me as far as, you know, I might even get a soft glow over here. Or maybe that, no, I don't want to do that. You know, I could come back here somewhere. I don't want all these the same size. Sometimes I go back here and I just start suggesting stuff and just go, what's it going to be? In this case, it'll probably be. And I could start to create some flames back here because that makes sense. Does that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
So I'm going to start to do that. Because isn't he from hell or something?
That would explain a lot for his name, right?
Yeah. I am too, but I just don't brag about it. Okay, so here. We could start building some flames in there. Start to your point, Irene, creating some embers going off here. Want some really hot ones here and there. I don't want them all the same. And also, I always go in here with the embers and I reshape them and edit them out. And down here, I can probably put some. Now, look, I want some embers in front of this little section here, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go now. But now I've got that ink there, right? So when I get start going, I want to go over that. I got to put a layer over that, and I always just call it like over layer because I don't want to paint on. I want to keep the ink locked and just you know. So then I can come in here and get some of this going in front of it. So it feels like it's sort of, and then again back to my eraser because I want to shape these. I want to make sure they don't get too uniform. Also, I want to get some really hot ones here and there. They're getting too uniform, so now I'm going to come back in here and I want to make sure that they don't feel like, I don't want this one. And I could start putting all this stuff in there. Some of these feel too marky. I don't like that. You know, I could probably even get away with some. So you can put some cools in that flame. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to grab this again. I'm going to grab my base yellow again. Boy, that's annoying. I got to turn that off. I'm going to go back to my, I don't even know what layer it's on. Right here. Back to this layer. I'm going to grab that, but I'm going to go to a really hot starting point. Back to here. It's getting too uniform. So all kinds of things that flame can do. But I'll leave it there for now. I'd still play with it some more, but this is fine for now. You know, and then that gives me another reason to kind of come up here. Because I'm controlling my lighting this way and going, well, now I can really light up his face and stuff, right?
Yes.
Because that's really probably where I want your eyes to go. I could put a lot of contrast on there. And one thing that's really nice about digital painting when you're working on a pressure sensitive tablet is you got a lot of you can just sort of glaze color over each other and have it affect each other. I do that constantly. Just like with all this blue and everything, when I come in and knock a little bit of this orangey color down here over it, it sort of starts to dip into being a purple, which makes sense from a lighting perspective. Does that make sense?
Yes, correct.
And then and then I'd keep building and building and building. And then I'd go back to my overlayer and I go, okay, this here, these are reflective things down here. So I'm going to go and give it some reflection in here because these are reflective. Actually, let me go back because I don't need to be on the overlayer for this yet. I can go back to my color layer because it'll just sit under. It'll be easier to do there. It'll sit under the black here, 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 here. You know, even here, you know, maybe a little here. You know, if I got clever, I could come up here to this fire or this overlayer. I'm going to go to a simple brush here because I'll reshape it. You know, and I could get some of this. Oh, I'm on smudge. Hang on. Now some of these embers that go over in front of him. You know, and I'd have to design it all and all that. Back to my eraser, I'm going to knock them back. I could also find a brush that kind of makes a nice random mark. I think I need one that's a little bigger. Some really hot ones here. I'd have to design all that, but it wouldn't be bad to have embers going over the front of them. Then reshape.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
When you're deciding where you want your warm and cools, do you always think of like a reason? Like the top is like the planet, that's why it's cool, and the bottom is flames?
For the most part.
Okay, so you don't just like put it anywhere.
No, that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
What do I see all the time with concept design? I see people, and I've been saying this, and I know I'm repeating myself, but I don't care. It's important. I see people going, ooh, I like concept design. I'm going to go copy what that guy's doing. They don't know what he's doing or she's doing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
They're just going, oh, I want to make everything over here warm and everything over here cool. And it's like, your painting looks totally amateurish. You don't understand lighting. You don't understand shit. You know what I mean? You don't understand anything.
Mm-hmm.
You're just looking at that and getting all fanboy and going, ooh, I want to draw that. Well, forget about that. What it's about is how does that work? Why is that person so damn good at that? Why? Because they know their fundamentals, they know lighting, they know, and there's different kinds of lighting. There's tomorrow, or maybe tomorrow, I don't know. There's a spot over here I want to go out and paint tomorrow. That lighting is natural lighting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what you're talking about in entertainment design, because a lot of, and by the way, I'm not knocking this. They're more talking about cinematic lighting. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's much more about, it's cinematic lighting. It's very pushed, you know, it's why everything looks all dramatic and cool. Now you need to know both of those, okay? Because then I get kids in whatever, another class, and we're doing more of a natural environment thing, and they're just doing all these crazy, ridiculous lighting things. And it's like, this looks stupid. Now you can combine those two things. You can absolutely combine those two things, but you got to start knowing how to balance them and design them. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you need to know cinematic lighting and all that stuff. Totally fine. But it's just, it feels like it's constantly this cart before the horse thing. I want to do that. And it's like, don't you care about painting? Don't you care about drawing? Don't you care about design? No, you don't. All you care about is that. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And I know I'm starting to sound like the school's hard ass. I get it. But that's not my intention. My intention is to make you guys aware of, like, you want to do that? Here's how you do that. You know, or you can do this fanboy stuff that nobody's ever going to hire you for, because they open your portfolio and they go, oh, fanboy. And they're never going to see your portfolio because it's probably going to be filtered out. It's never going to, because like I can tell you this from experience at Disney. I was getting quite a few portfolios that I was like, these are ridiculous. And they were getting filtered through HR. And I finally got tired of it. I took my portfolio, went over to HR, and I go, I do not want to see work less than this. Is what I'm looking for, is this. Or you could go look at Mario's portfolio. You can go look at Dwight's portfolio. That's what I'm looking for. Stop sending me these fanboy portfolios. Start filtering these. So I'm not getting 40 portfolios, 38 of which are useless. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it would really irritate me. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I don't want to see fanboy portfolios. Are you kidding me? These things are full of Disney characters. How do you guys not know that I don't want to see this? I want to see good design skills, good drawing skills, good ideation skills, good fast sketch skills, good finish skills, good manufacturing knowledge, good innovation. That's what I want to see. Because the rest of the stuff, if you can draw well and all that kind of stuff, well, of course. And by the way, I had people on the team that did character design or character art. Okay. So I didn't really need people who were great at putting characters on model. I needed ideas. Then I would hand it to a character artist and go, hey man, get the characters on model or whatever, if we even needed to. Does that make sense? Or if I threw down characters or whatever and drawing or a concept I was doing, I didn't care about the characters being on model at all, because it's just a concept, you know? I only had one time I had a producer at Imaginarium that goes, which I thought was so stupid. She goes, it was some concept thing. And she goes, I don't think Mickey's on model. And I'm like, it's a concept piece. No, he's not on model, but it's fine for concept. I don't know. Maybe you should get it on model. Why? Oh, because you don't understand this. Okay, I get it. You know what I mean? And then I think I handed it off to an animator and I go, put those things on model. I'm not going to do that. I don't like doing that. I hate drawing on model. Okay. Now, okay, is all that making sense?
Yeah.
How quickly we could build this? Yeah?
Yes, yes.
And also, this is another example, like you want to do this inking kind of stuff. This inking thing, by the way, is its own animal. Totally its own animal, man. But what I really want you to see is that, like, when you see these comic book things, it's really all about that inking, man. You know what I mean? Like the inker's the star there. You can see I didn't do crap to this and it's starting to look cool. Do you know what I mean? I didn't really do anything to it. You give me something this rock solid, pretty simple. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Because part of the thing here I want to do is demystify this a little bit. There is an X factor to it. There is a magic factor to it. Give me 2 seconds, you guys. Can you give me 2 seconds? Okay, what I'd start to probably do here now, just do it real quick, is I'd start to build some more contrast in here. I don't want that much. Hang on. I'm going to go back down here. And by the way, I'm picking a pretty saturated color, but I'm leaning back on my pressure quite a bit. So I'm sort of controlling the saturation and the value through the pressure. Does that make sense?
Right.
So down here especially, I could build quite a bit of contrast, but I don't want it all down there because he's up here. So we'll get some more of this. You know, and I'd have to dance around and go, how do I trick this so it makes sense? I'm going to cool this off a little bit, not too much.
Professor,
Yeah.
how would you paint like a metal or aluminum, like that gun?
Okay, so really, if the light was, okay, so he's holding his gun like this, right?
Right.
Now, if that light was behind here, what had probably happened is that gun would probably go pretty into silhouette, right?
Oh, yeah.
Now, I'm not going to worry about that. What I do with the gun, let's say that the light's over here somewhere maybe, or it's underneath it a little more. I might come in, let's say the light's like down here somewhere, kind of hitting it this way, yeah?
Yep.
So again, I could come in here and go, as it goes away from the light, let me get back on my color layer. As it goes away from the light, maybe I'll cool it down a little bit. Could even silhouette out a little bit, but I don't want to go that far. I want to keep things a little more dramatic. And then I'm going to knock that down a little bit. Oops. Let's cool this all down a little bit. I could go a little darker with it, but I'm not sure if I want to do that yet. So it's sort of the same sort of idea with the fire idea, where I'm going to go. So I'm cooling it down a little bit. Now it just depends on the lighting, okay? It could just be a value thing if it was just a normal lighting. And then I'm going to say the light is hitting it right there on that edge. So what I'm going to do is come in here with this little bit of orange and sort of start kind of popping it in here a little bit. Oh, that's not enough. Hang on. Want more of this orange here. There you go. I'm going to move some of that in there. And then what's going to happen is, because it's a shiny thing, I'm going to go to my full blast orange here and go, okay, if the lighting source is right there, that's where I'm going to get my really hot spots, like towards the lighting, maybe a little in there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then I'm going to go, if it's really reflective, I might go up here and get a little bit of specularity. And I think that's a little hard, so I'm going to knock it down. You know, and then I could even go, and I hardly ever go to pure white, but once in a while you can. I might go to, you know, some real specularity like that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I like to have a little bit of color in the specularity, because it usually does. Sometimes it can you know, if you see a car in front of you on a summer day and the chrome's catching specularity, it just look white. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it usually, at least in theory, has a little color in it. So I like to leave a little color in it. I could bounce a little of that specularity around. Don't want to overdo it. Yeah, that's better. See what I mean?
Yes. Yeah, I see.
And then also here, all this stuff is also got specularity. These are like, I'm assuming rosary beads or something. So I can get in here and bounce a little bit of that around these buckles on his belt. This down here can get some specularity maybe. You know, I don't know what his hands are like, but maybe a little there. And by the way, you're doing a dance. Okay, see how that's starting to dance the specularity around a little bit?
Yeah.
That looks pretty nice on his fingers right there, I think. Maybe even here a little bit, because that's so close to it. That's not specularity, it's just really light value. You know, you're balancing. What you want to do is you want to develop a knowledge of how things work. Okay, so like when I was in school, like marker rendering, let's say, right? Makes me sound like 100 years old. Marker rendering, they wouldn't go, here's how you paint whatever, or here's how you do a marker rendering of a superhero. They go, here's hard surface, here's plastic, here's a more matte surface, here's a metal surface, here's chrome. You know, you'd go through X amount of materials, then you go to texture, here's fabric, here's kind of how you do fabric, here's how you do reflections on a car, which goes back to the, you know, the cylinders and things you just did of different materials, all that kind of stuff. And when you get through all that, you kind of know how to render things of all different types because you didn't go in, you know, those things will apply to almost everything. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah.
And it's a much better way to learn. It's a much more solid way to learn. And that's why I always say in all my classes, just like right now, I think I've said it in here, when we do a planetary scene, it's not about planets. It's not even about the space or anything. It's about the idea of abstraction, edges, and how you can use abstraction to create much more sophisticated ideas that look very representational, which is really what a lot of people are going for, except most of the time they don't know that because they're learning these super ham-fisted techniques that are like, okay, these are just Photoshop step-by-step techniques. I don't know what you're going to do with that. You don't really know what you're doing. You just know how to do this, and it ends up looking like that. And that doesn't look that good. It looks stiff, and it looks like a Photoshop technique thing, right? And then we're moving it into here. Okay, let's throw the planet idea and everything in the background. Let's use it for our lighting. But it's also breaking up the background and all that stuff. So it's starting to get a little more interesting. And then the idea of specularity and building from here's the hottest light source. So it's going to drop off a little here, drop off a little here. Maybe I can throw some flames back here and light up his face. I'm really kind of trying to control the lighting. And who was it? Kayla that asked this about controlling the lighting?
Mm-hmm.
I am thinking about that all the time, especially if it's going to be something sort of finished or whatever. I'm trying to set up the lighting actually. When I set up just like this, I just go, well, I want to throw a warm light down here. I need it cool up there. So I kind of like moonlight, but it's some otherworldly thing. So I could throw a totally crazy looking planet up there, but I want it to be, I could also put a ship up there. I could put all kinds of stuff up there, but, what I really want to do is get that moonlight rim light, which is like more like this. And I can kind of, obviously push this a lot further because why? This is a fantastic, see what I mean? I'd probably get a way stronger light on there like that and just sort of rim light a little bit of this like that probably. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I'll start get this nice warm cool thing going on. That's a little much, but I'd probably pull that down a little bit. And a lot of times I'm pulling it down with my smudge brush because it kind of washes a little bit of away and also softens it in a way that, like, I might pull that edge a little bit, let the top edge be harder edge, pull it away. Why? Because it's hitting the light, pulling away. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when we're talking about, or now we're talking about this type of color or whatever, it's about designing, right from the start, here's what I'm trying to find. I'm trying to find things that are going to, from a lighting perspective, are going to give me color and temperature that I can shift and I can use to my advantage. It's sort of like stage lighting in a certain way. And I don't know if I talked about this, but I think it's my illustration class, I can't remember, where we're doing a watercolor children's book thing. And I have this bear, because I just did a demo using a bear in like a woodsy environment or whatever. But when I start that, I go, I'm going to put a big wash of warm sort of autumn leaves right here in the foreground. Why?
To work with the lighting, yeah.
Yeah, but the way I look at those leaves is leaves are translucent. So I look at those as colored lighting gels. I'm going, there's sun over here, sun's pouring through there. Now I can warm up the side of that bear so it's not just a big brown wash, Now this side starts to get warm and starts to live into the environment because otherwise it could feel cut out. Then I have that same light hit the grass and stuff in front of his feet. And I have some spots where I left it sort of warm, like it's dirt or whatever. So now that hot green grass where that same light is hitting the grass, I can bounce that up into the bottom of him where he gets a lot of green reflective color in him, right? So now I'm getting a much more colorful, and then I've got a big blue sky behind him. So I leave a little white as I'm throwing in my wash right on the edge. And then I take that sky color and I hit it here. So the blue is rim lighting him a little bit, like he's getting some sky color hitting him. So now I've got a little green and warm coming up from here. I've got some nice autumny colors falling on him here. And I've got this little rim light of the sky. So that just starts to push it up into looking much more professional, much more interesting. And it vibrates more. It's got more depth and it just vibrates more. It's just got a little bit of movement in the color. And it's also that I got movement in the color. I got movement in the shapes. I'm doing that with the values. Where can I soften that value? and get a harder value and a soft value. So all the values are starting to modulate. Now I'm starting to modulate all the temperatures and all on and on and on. And all those things holistically put together are what create an interesting professional looking thing. Does that make sense? If they have the Masters American West show, I'm going to, if they have it in house, which maybe they will this year, I don't know, I have to look it up. We should do a field trip there, and it won't be official, but I'm going to go see it no matter what. And you need to go in there and you need to stand in front of those paintings and get your head blown off. Okay. Because you'll get your head blown off. Like you look at those things, your jaw will hit the floor, especially if Bill Anton's in it. I mean, that guy, I've had students stand in front of those paintings and they go, is that digital? Like they can't even comprehend that it's done by hand. It's like, it's not digital, it's oil. You know what I mean? But everything in those paintings, especially Bill Anton, rock solid contrast, rock solid temperature, rock solid color, rock solid brushwork. The guy's a total badass. Okay. And when you stand in front of those, or Calvin Ling, or Scott Burdick, or Susan Lyon, or all these Christopher Blossom, I think is his name. There's a bunch of them, right? And you stand in front of those things, and it's a master class in kind of what we're talking about here with all these things coming together. Does that make sense? And those are really good things to look at. Like get out of the ecosystem of whatever it is you do, illustration, entertainment, get out of that ecosystem and go look at other things. So you're starting to expand your knowledge base of how all this works. So you're not sort of copying what other people are doing. You're absorbing all these really good fundamental ideas. Does that make sense? Okay. Does everybody understand this?
Yeah, kind of.
I would start with a base like I did. It sort of ties everything together. And I do this when I'm painting traditionally, usually too. I usually put down a base of burnt or brilliant orange, right? What it does is it immediately gets rid of the white of the canvas. It immediately gives you a value and a color that you can work over, that sort of locks everything together. Okay. If you start trying to do this piecemeal where you go, well, I'm going to put this sky color around, what's his name? Hellboy. Then I'm going to come in and do that. It can start to disconnect. Okay. Now, if you want to do that down the line, that's fine. But I think right now it's a pretty good. And the other thing that's really nice about digital is that you can go over anything any way you want. Like you can pull back on the pressure and glaze a little bit, go heavy on the pressure and go opaque. And you want to start managing that also. You can do this without a tablet. Okay. But it's going to be a lot better if you have a tablet. And if you don't have a tablet, again, and you don't have a lot of money for one, XP Pen is an option, and the little Intuos is an option. Those are $79 to $100. And you can do the same stuff in here. Because I have a lot of people and they go, oh, I disconnect when I go there. And I kind of see that, but maybe if I went back to it right now, well, I do every now and then. I have to kind of readjust a little bit, but it's drawing. Like I'm moving my hand, it's right there. Okay. It's not that big a deal. Okay. I want to see something. I want to make sure I got enough. For some reason, I think I know what it is. There it is. Okay. Let me get one more screen grab here. Damn it. Perfect. Any questions on this?
When did you want this by?
I want to look at them on Monday.
Completely done?
Just as far as you can take it.
Okay.
Okay, again, this is a mechanics class. I like to be working, and I don't expect everybody to get some big concept. I mean, it's a lot of stuff in there, kind of, right? I mean, I'm asking you to think about lighting and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to grade you like, because some of you haven't done this before, so I'm not going to get all, your lighting's all screwed up. That's a whole other thing. I'm just trying to introduce you to it and kind of explain it a little bit, okay, and give you a starting point. And the starting point in this case is warm, cool, right? Hang on. There. Where are we at? 12? Okay. And yeah, by the way, look, I'll put these, I'll link these on our, whatever you call it. What do you call that? Canvas.
Canvas?
I'll link these. Wait, let me get rid of this. What's this? That's not what I want. Hang on. I'll link this one. This one. I linked this one in case you're not a comic book person. You want to do something else. It's a Dana Gibson drawing, which I think is really cool. That's the one I just did. I'll link that one. If you want to go crazy, you could do that one or that one. So I just put like different layers of complexity on them. Does that make sense?
Can we color the orange?
Yeah, you can color the orange, or first you have to ink the orange, then you can color the orange. And the orange has to become a superhero and all that. You can become annoying orange. You know annoying orange?
I do know the annoying orange. It's very annoying.
Frank's Simon. You know Simon? Jamie's
No,
kid?
I don't.
It's Jamie's
Mhm.
kid, and he's like, he was totally into that, and he's watching it all the time. He'd be hanging around the school and he'd be watching that. And you're like, go outside, man.
It's like the worst YouTube thing.
I know, but he was totally obsessed with it. So I kept hearing it in the background. I'm like, God damn it, Simon, like enough of that, you know? Like it is annoying. Okay. All right. So I'm going to put those up there. If you find another one, you want to do a different one, I don't care. I just don't want it to be, I want it to have like some really heavy ink in there. Okay. Not just a delicate, you know, you need to have that solid, cemented foundation in there. But if you want to try a different one, I'm fine with that. But and again, I'm giving you layers of complexity. The one I just did, and then the ones where it has multiple people in it and all that stuff. And you'll see very quickly if you do this, like if you do one and then you go to a more complex one, it's pretty fast. Like if you want to do coloring book color or coloring book, comic book color, I mean, it's not, you know, and by the way, I'll show you a couple things on Monday. Don't let me forget, or I'll put it in my notes. I'll show you some things you can do over this on top of the ink to start getting like crazy, whatever, glows or orbs or whatever you want to talk about. Does that make sense? What are you writing down, Irene?
Homework.
I'll put it up. I'll put it up under assignments.
So if we want to look up like other pictures, what is the best way to Google it? Like ink,
Comic book ink.
comic book ink. Okay.
Or comic book inking, and then go to the large because you want a fairly big file.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Or ink comic book ink pages or stuff like that, where you'll just get pure ink pages. There's quite a bit of it out there.
Gotcha.
And I don't care the subject matter or anything like that. You know, if you want to do the Care Bears ink page, I don't care.
That's actually what I was thinking about.
I thought that's what I figured. Again, telepathic. Irene just can't pick up the signals.
It's just not coming through, you know.
Yeah, that's an excuse, in my opinion. But okay, that's fine. Hang on, let's stop this.
Did you still want 72 DPI?
You could go more on it if you want. I think the ones let me check. This one, okay, by the way, you can go here to image size. Yeah, these are 72, but I think it's pretty big. Hang on. See, I mean, that's plenty big enough, and it's a manageable file because it's 72. You just don't want 72 and it's this big, because then when you blow it up, it's going to pixelate, right? I think all of these are probably 72, but they're decent size.
Are you showing us your screen that we can't see?
Again. Okay, so here's this one. There's the, oops. Here's the real size. See, that's a pretty nice size, but it's, if you go up to image size, or there we go. For some reason, it's 96. I don't know what the hell that is, but who cares? As long as they're visually big enough, and you can go up here to, let's make it smaller again. You can go up here to view 100%, and it gives you the 100% view. Yeah. The Hellboy one's about that big, which is fine. It's also 72. I think all these are 72. They're just big. They're just reasonably big. This Justice League thing. That's plenty big enough. It's probably 72. Oops. Yeah. So you can just do that. It's going to be a little harder if you're trying to find really high res images, because most of the time they don't want to put them out there. They know that you can't really use this for anything because it's 72. And again, it's a manageable size. It's not going to bog on you depending on what your computer is. Does that make sense?
Okay.
All right. So everybody knows what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I will. Irene, did you look at Bill Anton?
I did, and like so a lot of the stuff is subdued, but there's like one or two where the saturation level is super high on like the grass or the sky, and it's gorgeous.
He's amazing. It's super humble guy. Look at this guy. Just one more, and then I'll let you guys go. Just another dude. It's a monster. Really great with this guy's another master of like edges. So's Anton. Look at the size this guy works at.
Wow.
And then look. Talk about edge control, man.
That's so nice.
Look at that. Talk about warm, cool, right?
Yeah, that's nice.
Oh, he has books.
Uh-huh. That's a plein air. You can tell the ones that look at that.
Sounds nice.
Yeah, these things are like, see if I can go over here real quick. His website actually doesn't do him justice. Look at these. Where are they? Gouache. These are gouache. For some reason, he's doing a lot of gouache lately. This is why I tell you, go get, I'd say watercolor first, unless you've taken my Friday class, I'll teach you gouache, but because gouache is a little tricky. These are just fast little studies, okay? I got a couple of them over here I did when I was on the road. And I just take road trips. I just go out with my gouache. I bring acrylic, I bring oil, and I just go out and wherever I feel like painting, I just pull over and paint and I end up somewhere, right? And it's just constantly absorbing experiences, absorbing knowledge. It's a blast. And it's just constantly feeding my skill set. Does that make sense? It's constantly feeding his skill set. Anyway, you can see what I'm talking about with this edge control thing here, right? And we'll get into that later. Okay.
Okay, cool.
And I'm not going to go down like this endless painting rabbit hole. I just want to make you aware of that. So when you go into digital painting, all that, or whatever you go into painting or whatever, you're already aware of it. Because if you're already aware of it, you're not doing, again, I probably said this before, but what I'm, all these years of me doing this or whoever doing it, you're coming back to the classroom and going and going, even if you're not going to get it all, because it's a lot of things, you plant the seed, okay? And you plant the seed, and you plant the seed of these things that you're going to hit as you get more and more sophisticated in your work. And then hopefully you're going to go, oh, that's that thing. Now I'm getting it. That soft edge against that. Might even be an accident, but you're like, oh, that I get it. And it's something will unlock, okay? So this idea of temperature, this idea of edge control, this idea, all these things are pretty high-minded painting ideas. But if you become aware of them, then they're not so, stumbling around in the dark like I was forever trying to figure these things out. Does that make sense? So hopefully it compresses your learning curve. That's what my goal anyway. Okay, let me stop this. And I will let you guys go. Yeah? If you guys have any questions, just hit me up, okay? Again, it's not about comic book inking to me. It's about, this is already locked together, so we can just focus on the color, this dramatic color. Then we'll go to one that's much more subtle, Then we'll go to one that's more subtle and is more painterly. Does that make sense? Where we're not relying on, first two will rely on sort of, this, by the way, well, not this. The next one will be a little more of a grisaille technique. And then the last one will be a full-on grisaille technique. Okay? Okay, you guys.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you. Bye.
See you later.
Bye.